Hey everybody, my name is Old School Nerd, and if you are even familiar with my channel, you know that I've been waiting for this one all week. Right now, I'm going to react to Sabaton, Stormtroopers. Check us out on OldSkuleNerd.com. It's got all of our social media posts. The Patreon link for those who want to support the channel. We appreciate all of you. Of course, there's also the links in my website to help with my daughter's medical bills and things like that. We're all trying this whole internet thing, YouTube thing I do is mainly for her. But let's get into this. Sabaton, one of my favorite bands that I've discovered since I started on YouTube. Thanks to all of you. You always keep me on top. Like, have you seen the new one? Have you seen the new one? We are now we have 2 months. 2 months. We're going to be seeing Sabaton live in Houston, Texas. If you're going to the Houston, Texas show October 1st, come find me. I'm the idiot with the beard. There's probably going to be more than just one, but look for me. I'm the stupid idiot with a beard. Anyway, so let's get into this. Been waiting for this for a bit. Now, I'm going to do something I've never, ever done before. I'm going to stay quiet. And I'm not going to stop the video. Just understand that at the end of the video, I'm going to want to break it down and talk about it. But before we start, let me give you a little bit of context. Boys and girls, Stormtroopers is not this Stormtrooper. I know that a lot of you, especially those of you in the United States, don't understand the reference because you grew up in a Star Wars universe, and that's okay. And we'll talk about why people in the United States think when you say Stormtroopers that the ones that can't hit anything are the only ones involved. No, there's a bigger history involved, and it goes all the way back to the beginning of the 20th century. Wow. I didn't even know that. So anyway, since I know a lot of you, when you hear me talking nonstop, you just want me to
stop it. Get some help.
I think I will. I'm going to get my beard out of the way. Yeah, I'm just going to slide over here. Let's enjoy this one together. Super excited. And I won't stop it. I know, right? You don't believe me. You're like, there's no way he can go 3 minutes and 56 seconds without stopping a video. I'm going to prove you wrong. Let's start off. Here's the rifling of a barrel. Let's do it. Sabaton, Stormtroopers. The animation's top notch. I like this a lot.
Infantry attacks, exposed in the cracks. New combat ideals on the Kaiserschlacht fields. Strike at 0 hour with overwhelming firepower. They're fueled by the fear in their enemy's eyes. It's a shock troop infiltration, a fast violent escalation. Out of the trenches, the stormtroopers rise.
Nice. I love this break. You need to police that brass, brother. Damn.
Out of the trenches, the Stormtroopers rise. Strike at 0 hour with overwhelming firepower. They're fueled by the fear in their enemy's eyes. It's a shock troop infiltration.
Some slow motion CSGO right there.
Out of the trenches, the Stormtroopers rise.
You know how bad I wanted to make the whole comment during the guitar solo, like, go Tommy, go to, you know, but I didn't want to because, you know, that's me talking too much. But now that the video is over, now I can. Yay! All right, and for those of you who have stayed this long, I promise you I won't keep you all day because it's just bullshit. Let's get into this. Okay, Sabaton, name of the song is Stormtroopers. Let's break it down. Now, I'm just going to cover what I know. I'm not saying I know everything, but I do know enough to make this work, okay? Number one, when people think of Stormtroopers, I know, at least in the United States for the most part, everyone thinks this. Well, it's not, okay? The whole idea, the reason why George Lucas called them Stormtroopers was because when he was young, when George Lucas was very young, there was kind of the Korean War era, and people were still reeling from the Blitzkrieg, the Nazi Blitzkrieg style of combat, and a lot of the troopers on the ground, as part of the mechanized infantry that went with the Blitzkrieg, were called Stormtroopers. That's not where they originated from, but it is where George Lucas got the idea, because they swept through like a locust swarm and just overwhelmed defenses. The story of how the Stormtroopers began and what they led to literally changed the course of the world. Let me explain in step. Now, again, a lot of people don't know, and if you're American and you don't know this, and if you're German and you don't know this, you should just turn in your German card now. A lot of the plot line, especially on the antagonist side, not the agonist, that's a metal band. Antagonist, as in the bad guys for the Empire, was based upon Germanic lore. In fact, the entire story arc is based upon Germanic folklore, the story arc of the hero, the father figure, the son, the old hermit, all of those classic folk tales from Germanic societies. So it just kind of goes to par. I mean, everyone in Germany, when they released Star Wars, if you didn't know that Darth Vader was Luke's dad, how did you not know that? Vader means father. We didn't know it because we're American and we're dumb, and it was 77 and we're just excited the movie didn't suck. But let's talk about the non-George Lucas reason why we're here. In World War I, we talked previously on Sabaton videos about trench warfare and how the advent of the machine gun. Now, when I say machine gun, I'm not talking about a submachine gun like an Uzi or an MP5 or even the grease guns you see in this this version of this animated video. I'm talking about mounted machine guns, 400 to 800 cyclic rate a minute. I mean, before that, your guns were usually bolt action, and sometimes in a repeater version, but nothing like high cyclic. And what I mean by cyclic, I mean high rate of fire. That was first introduced in World War I. In fact, there were so many new technologies invented for World War I. The airplane comes to mind. Submarines in actual combat form come to mind. Gas masks and gas chemical warfare come to mind. And machine guns and tanks are some of the big ones that people remember. Well, before tanks came into the fray, they were in a stalemate for like 4 years. The British, French, Belgian, on one side, America didn't join yet. The Germans and their allies on the other side. And they were in trenches, artillery bombardments, machine gun nests, no man's land. That's where the term no man's land comes from. Anyone goes out there, both sides are going to light you up. There's the stalemate. So when you have 4 years of stalemate, when random gas attacks and artillery attacks are rampant, people are just dying. No one's winning any battles. No one's gaining any ground. No one's losing any ground, but people are just dying. And you see that reflected in the young soldiers' eyes, both from the British perspective, the Allied perspective, and the German perspective. The look in their eyes, the shell shock, the desperation that, yes, they're trying to kill the opponent, but at the same time, it just seems to never end. So lots of technology was designed to stop the stalemate. Machine guns caused it. Tanks started kind of in a both British and Germans kind of caught up a little bit, but the giant tanks with the wraparound treads and everything, those lumbering ones, were Britain's idea to break the stalemate. Germany was kind of fighting a war on all fronts, and what a lot of people don't realize is that during World War I, towards the latter half, they were really struggling with fuel, ammunition, munitions, soldiers. I mean, they were pretty desperate. They didn't let on, but they were pretty desperate. So to break the stalemate, instead of going with mechanized tanks, I mean, they did eventually, but the first primary idea that they had was Stormtroopers or shock troops. And to get you an idea of what it is, it's young men, like they say in the song, 25 years or younger. They have to be fast. They have to be small. They don't want a big target. And what made them unique is that they would run through the no man's land at night under artillery bombardment in small groups. That's the key. If you have a large contingent, like a regiment, comes out of the trenches, we've all seen the movies, whether it be the British side, French side, or the German side, if you come out 120 to 1,000 people, the machine guns are going to light you up. But if you're small, young, quick, fast, groups of 10, 20 soldiers at a time, can run through no man's land undetected, sneaky, jump behind the enemy lines, you can cause chaos. So, just like you see throughout this video, I'm going to let it play a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. They were prepared with some of the best hand-to-hand equipment that the German army had to provide. Number one, you saw the gas masks. Why? Because a lot of these shock troopers or stormtroopers would actually start during a chemical attack. So most stormtroopers were armed with, and we just showed it there, armed with a gas mask, their helmet, but also clubs, because they were going to go in hand to hand a lot of times. So the idea was to be quiet, get in there and wreak havoc, because as the Allied troops were hunkered down in the trenches due to a gas or artillery barrage, they would be behind the enemy lines going nuts. Because when you're ducking down, you're not looking to see if someone's attacking you. And if you're scrambling in a gas mask, you're not thinking someone's coming up behind you. You think everyone's just trying to survive. That's just the audacity of the idea of the stormtrooper. Also, you see this guy wearing plates of metal. Another reason is bayonet warfare was one of the few ways that you would fight hand to hand in the trenches. If you'd show up with an iron cuirass over your entire body, how are they going to stab you? They're not, or at least not without a lot of help. So they had that going for them. Again, this is all about the point of, now, the metal that they would wear was not enough to stop a rifle, but it was enough to stop a knife. So not only that, but it's really imposing looking. Okay. Now, some stormtroopers actually went out and used white paint to paint skulls on their gas masks. Similar to what you see, it is a visual stun as much as it is a physical one. Also, as I play along, you're going to see some of this other stuff. The weapons. Most soldiers in the trench warfare of World War I had rifles, bolt action rifles, Mausers, Springfields, and that was usually the commonality. But what the German soldier was able to have as a stormtrooper, they were the first troopers to ever be armed with handheld machine guns. The technology was new, the technology was unreliable, but you'll see in this video a few times they do show them with hand mini machine guns or light machine guns. They were the first people to use them. Why? They could jump behind into a trench and just spray, because all of the Allied troops would be hunkered behind the wall trying to avoid the artillery. And the stormtroopers, it was for glory. It was to break the stalemate. There were stormtroopers that did it for the glory. Some stormtroopers that did it for their country. Some stormtroopers were promised money and fame, and they would be able to go home soon, whatever it took. But these guys would go out there knowing that, yeah, it was probably a suicide mission, and that's just the way it was. Anything to break the constant death that was occurring on both sides. So you'll see during this video, especially right here at this point, you'll see the soldier, you see all these artillery casings piled up behind him, and he's holding that stormtrooper patch or that badge, and he throws it because there's just a desperation to just end the death, even if it means sacrificing himself. That was the whole idea. Now, what does that have to do with history? I said that the adventation of these stormtroopers changed the course of the world, and it did. One thing that occurred, by the way, if you don't know, Germany technically did lose World War I. So the idea of the stormtrooper didn't exactly relate to victory. But what it did do was introduce a new type of warfare. They mention it here in the song. Most people recognize that blitzkrieg comes from an armored fighting style that the Axis powers, particularly Germany, used in the invasion of Poland, Russia, and of course, Western Europe in the beginning of World War II. Without the idea of the stormtrooper in World War I, lightning fast, heavily armored, small groups, quick, with armor on their bodies, going around behind the enemy lines, flanking different, quick, not in a large column moving forward, but if you can go behind the enemy's lines quickly, cause chaos in the back, you can actually disrupt the line, causing an advancement. The idea of the armored blitzkrieg, which literally gave Germany Europe for almost 5 years, started with these volunteer shock troops in World War I. The similarities are uncanny. And like in the lyrics, they do talk about how the idea of the blitzkrieg was born here. The realization on a grand scale with armor didn't occur until the 1930s and 40s. But this is where it started with the stormtroopers. So yeah, I know a lot of you, especially those of the United States that were born in the 80s and 90s, think that when I say stormtrooper, what I really mean is this. Thank you, Sabaton, for making this amazing video. With the visuals, it really shows the grit and the personalization, not just the story, but the individual soldier. It really showed animation showing the outlook, the remorse, the shock of what it was like to work in the trenches, the personal strife, the escalation of violence that started with the stormtrooper. Again, this is not political. This is about history. This isn't about talking to glorify the German side. This isn't a way to villainize the German side in World War One. This is just telling the history like it is. And nobody does it better than Sabaton. So to all the guys in Sabaton, thank you very much. I want to thank Nuclear Blast Records for getting this out. And this is freaking awesome, man. Again, Sabaton's on tour, people, in Europe. If you haven't seen Sabaton, you need to do it. Also, all of you in the United States, tickets are still available. They're coming. They're coming soon. You got about a month, and they're going to land on our shores, and they're going to whip through the United States, just like they've been tearing through Europe on this tour to end all tours. By the way, guess who's coming with them? Epica. Yep. So that means you could bring your girlfriend too. Yeah, well, what else am I supposed to say? I love me some Epica, but if you play a Simone Simmons song, like one of those really good operatic ones, and your girlfriend's like, you want to go see this band? Absolutely. Just don't tell her about the fire or the cobras behind Epica or the spinning keyboard, and then make her stay for Sabaton. Everybody wins. I mean, right? We'll see you guys later. See? I didn't stop the video. Y'all should be proud. Come on, put it in the comments. Tell me how proud you are. Or you can just call me an idiot. I'm used to that too.